Hey guys, Femi LandVerse here, and I am here with Michael and Marco of Launch Control. And today we're just going to talk about filling up your pipeline with text marketing, and they're going to talk about it. So I'll let Michael and Marco take it away.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Fem. I really appreciate it. One of the things that we talked about kind of going into this was that with land investing in particular, you need routes to get around the slowdown during the holiday season because you don't actually want to slow down, right? But when you're sending out say, like direct mail, which is foundational for land investing, really important to have that as part of your approach. You'll see less response coming in. And the reason is pretty obvious, right? Like it's the holiday season, people are getting flooded with Christmas cards, they're traveling around, they've got a lot less of a lens just on that direct mail coming in and desire to like take their time to respond to that because while those leads are very motivated and they're great leads when they come in, it's somebody has to take that mail that you sent them, consider it, and then take the action to call you, right? And during a busy time, that's a lot, you know. And then for anybody that's doing paid advertising, the cost structure goes through the roof during the holidays. And again, it's pretty obvious why, right? Like there's everybody that has any kind of e-commerce shop or brick and mortar shop is doing a Black Friday sale and they've got holiday specials and they're trying to get as much visual touch points as they can on in front of everybody when they're in front of the computer, right? So the cost is going to go up, and that's really tough for a land investor who's just really trying to get some targeted inbound communications coming in to deal with, right? Text stays flat in terms of cost structure. It's launch costs what it costs. The text messaging structure costs what it costs. But what's more important is the quick response nature of a text, right? So like for everybody listening right now, if I had everyone's phone number and I sent you a message, and especially I can really only see your face, Femi, but I would watch this happen, right? I'd watch you go and then maybe kind of casually take a look to see if it was important, but I would see that movement because it's kind of a Pavlovian response with text. You get that message in, you go, well, what is it? Is it important? Who is it? And and you also reply very, very quickly, right? So in a time when people are putting off replying to direct mail, when they're saturated online, you're not getting that same level of saturation on text. So they're going to read the message. Text has like a 98% read rate. And there's a high likelihood that they're going to respond because it's such an in the moment, real time a way to connect with people.
Yeah, and that's really what I like most about text is that instant response marketing. And like I always talk about cash conversion cycles. Q4 is when you have the longest cash conversion cycle. So if you're trying to shorten that, you're going to need some direct response marketing, and really text is the best way to do that. So um, yeah, I don't see really anything better than texting and texting with launch control, especially in a time like this. So
Yeah, I mean this time of year, it really puts a spotlight on the differences between active and passive marketing.
right.
So passive marketing for everybody who's listening, if you're unfamiliar with the terminology, passive marketing is the other avenues that I mentioned: direct mail, pay per click, running. If you're getting really big at this, you might be running some TV ads or radio ads, which people do. But it's that kind of marketing where you put it out there and you wait for the responses to come back to you. And when those leads do, there's a certain level of motivation, right? So you often have the ability to jump really close to a discovery call and find out, the validity of the deal quite quickly. You don't have a lot of filtering to do. Those leads are solid when they come in, but you're it's a big money output. You have to spend quite a bit to get those leads going, and then it's a waiting game, right? So if you have time on a Wednesday to really focus on your land business, and those leads aren't coming in, then that's a Wednesday. I won't say a Wednesday wasted, but there's not a lot of opportunity for seller calls, right? Whereas Active marketing, and I do want to state this because Femi, you and I have talked about this a lot, right? It's not one or the
No,
they
it's not.
they
It's
complement
supplemental.
each other
Yeah,
really well, right?
supplemental for sure.
Finding the differences, not saying like choose one or the other. It's they complement each other extremely well.
Yeah.
Active marketing, which text is and cold calling is, right? That gives you the ability with launch control, with text messaging on that Wednesday that you really want to focus on your land business, whether it's during the holidays or otherwise. You have the ability to, at 10 a.m. in the morning, send out a batch of 150 messages. You're going to get a response rate of somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. So you're going to get 20, 25 inbound responses that are coming in from those text messages. And those responses are going to come in within 15 minutes. It's not an email. People don't sit around and wait and get to it when they can. Like
Yeah.
that analogy that I gave, right? I send you a message, Femi, and you're going to be like this, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And
You
people
know,
respond. Yeah.
one thing I was thinking too is like, imagine it's Thanksgiving Day and you have a bunch of letters that have come in, and okay, you're with your family, you're eating, you're drinking, you're watching football, whatever you're doing. I'm not really super pressed to open that mail, but I'm gonna be on my phone on Thanksgiving Day, right? So I sit there and I get that text, even if it's Thanksgiving Day and with my family, I'm probably gonna respond to that message still. So, I mean, just
Yeah.
the the matrix in the mind is just completely different for the two. So yeah, like you said, it's completely supplemental. So
And so it gives you this ability, right, to generate those conversations on a daily basis if you want to do that. And there are quite a few things that are really beneficial about this. If you are a really experienced land investor, you've been doing this for years, like if somebody replies to a text and you're able to quickly pivot to a call, which is always the goal, right? That's where business is always going to get done on a phone call. You're not going to, well, people do close land deals via text only, but it's not this, it's not a route that I would teach. I don't think it's a route that you would teach, Femi. Like it's take it if it happens, but you should plan on pivoting to a call, right?
yeah,
So it gives you, if you're super experienced at this, like you know you're going to do well in that call. You know exactly what to say. You know exactly how to guide that seller towards taking an offer on that particular piece of land. If
mm,
you're just getting your feet wet at this and you're really kind of learning the process, that ability to generate seller conversations on a daily basis is amazing because you can you can flub a few, right? You can flub a few, learn from your mistakes, course correct, and then when your direct mail leads start coming in and your PPC leads start coming in, or you're ready, you're practiced, and you've got it down, right? And so it gives you that ability to just test yourself in a live fire kind of environment and get that practice on your belt.
right. And the good thing is, going through LandVerse and being familiar with the scripts and all the coaching calls that we have, it's going to be very, very rare that you're experiencing difficulty talking to a seller, because that's one of the main points that we cover. So,
Okay,
um,
perfect.
yeah, like when you're dealing with you brought up a great point. You can absolutely close deals over text, but it's always best to build that interpersonal relationship with the seller and build that rapport, because you need something that's going to make you stand out from the other 20, 25 people that are contacting them.
Yeah.
'Cause the truth is, most people are not going to call. Most people are not going to follow up. But then when you do follow up and then you do try to make that connection and foster that with them, they're going to trust you and go with you over the other 20 people that might have sent them a text, email, or they might have clicked on an ad. If you take the extra effort and go the extra mile to make that interpersonal communication with them and that relationship, they're going to sell to you 10 times out of 10. And I know that from personal experience. So,
Absolutely. One thing that I wanted to mention, like you brought up the Thanksgiving example, right?
mhm,
Like they've gotten mail that's come in. Maybe they're not ready to respond to it, but they are going to answer a text message. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't send any direct mail, or if you've got direct mail that went out, say like this week, and you want to make sure that it's getting Thanksgiving results. Something that you could do if you've got a launch control account as well is you combine those efforts, right? So let's say that you sent out an offer letter, that was your plan, right? And they've got actually a number on that letter that you mailed out to them. If you send them a text that says, your version of, by the way, I mailed you an offer for your land over in Essex County, that's that you can. That's just a start of the conversation. I'd love to dive into it with you. You can reach me here as well, just so you know, right? And if they've seen that, and they whether you send that message before they get the mailer or just after, as a way of giving them two channels of communication to get to you, then if they saw that, they read it, they thought about it, they said I'll get to it in January, and then they received that message around the Thanksgiving holiday, and they go, yeah, well, look, I'm going to need X amount more. Right. Well, now you've got them in a conversation that they were gonna put off until January. And the
Right.
fact that you sent that one extra touch point that unified your two marketing approaches is the thing that gets them to respond.
That's powerful, man. Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but that's very powerful.
And it's another thing that's a really important to keep in mind when you
Mhm.
think about your different marketing channels falls into the same conversation. And it's something that investors in land and distressed properties, et cetera, they often forget, is that for all of it, if you think of all of like the streams of communication that are going out, right? All of those land on an individual, right? So Femi, if you send me a direct mail piece and there's an offer on it or whatever, right? Or even if it's just an inquiry, I get that direct mail piece from you. And you've
Mhm.
also got PPC ads running, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing online, and those things are popping up and I'm seeing them, right?
Yeah.
And then I get a cold call, and then I also get a text, right? You tried everything. The cold call number came from one number. The text came from another number. The PPC ad was on a computer screen, and the direct mail arrived at my house. The chance I have no idea as a recipient that that is four ways to get to you, right?
Right.
So I'm going to make the natural assumption that four different investors are approaching me about my land. And so
Right.
I'm going to feel a sense of oversaturation because I don't have any indication of unification, right? I don't have any indication that those things came together. So when you have that ability to take a text message and a direct mail piece and unify them and say, hey, this is one solution provider, right? It's like you have an asset, I have solutions for that asset. Here's just a couple of ways to get in touch with me. Then they see like these are different lines or different streams leading to the same person or the same company, and
Right.
that just increases your level of professionalism and reduces their feelings of being pestered or oversaturated.
Right. It's kind of like an omnipresence thing too. And the other thing too that I like is, in sending that text, and saying, "Hey, I actually did send you a letter." They're gonna go look for the letter too, like you were saying. So, I mean,
Hmm.
this is the other thing too. I've had multiple situations with sellers where they're like, "Yeah, I just picked your letter out because yours just looks more professional than these other ones." But now I can't even imagine what would happen when we send a text on top of that. Hey, Mr. Seller, I actually just sent you a mailer, or whatever language that you're supposed to use. I just sent you this letter or whatever it is. Give me a call back when you get the chance. And the
Yeah,
letters, and you're scheduling it because we can see when the mail is going to deliver. So then you're scheduling it to send out when the mail actually gets delivered, right? So then they're looking for it. That's a
yeah.
very, very powerful concept
And
because
I'll,
you're going to rise to the top over anyone else. So
right, and so like I think a common question would be, well, why not just call them, right? Right? Why not just skip to the call? And
mhm.
the reason I would say that a text would be more powerful in that situation. So let me ask you this: if I call you right now, right, how long do you expect that phone call to last? Now,
Uh,
you don't know me, but I call you and you answered, like,
yeah, 15 seconds probably.
right. But your initial reaction is going to be like, I don't even have 15 seconds for this. What?
Right.
Right? Because you don't know me, so I've got to capture your attention really quickly, and as soon as you get on a phone call, you're on a phone call, right? You're immediately thinking of, do I want to be on this phone call? How quickly can I get off this phone call? It's something, if you're not ready for that, right? If it wasn't a wanted call, then you feel a sense of pressure as a recipient. When you receive a text, you feel no sense of pressure, right? Like you can read it and not respond to it, You can read it and respond to it. If you do respond to it, most text responses are very short, right? People aren't writing paragraphs in text. You don't do it, nobody else does it, right? So when you say, I also sent you a direct mail piece, and they say, I'm with family, can't talk now. Okay, but there you now, if you're using launch control, one, you can reply back. Well, I would take your advice on how to respond to that, because that's a coaching decision. But
Yeah.
what I will tell you as a software provider is that Launch Control has a drip automation feature, and so what you can do is, and we can get into this a little bit more detail, but what you can do is once they respond and they're in your inbox, then you can put them on a sequence of messages that goes out on an automated cadence, and that cadence can deliver a bunch of value, right? Like why people work with you, testimonials of success stories that you've had with people, expertise around the local, or involving the local county that you're buying in, tax information and things that most landowners don't know about, like whatever kind of value you want to drip out there, so that you're getting those consistent touch points in, so that even if it is definitely a January close, when January comes, they've gotten most of the information that they need from you, and the close conversation is super short.
Got it. So we're building up the rapport with the drip campaign as well, basically. Got
Exactly.
it.
And
Okay.
and you have that opportunity when they respond, if they say, "I'm busy with family." Like I said, like, I don't know how you would pivot that, but there's still an opportunity to potentially schedule a time, or, follow up with them by phone, the following week. You've They know who you are. You've gotten some level of hand raise, and so there's a lot of different directions you can take that.
If we've gotten any response at all, we're escalating that to schedule an appointment with them, schedule an appointment to actually talk, right? Because that's, like I said, that's the biggest thing that we want to do. I want to be able to get these people on the phone. When
Yeah.
we can get them on the phone, we can build rapport, then we can close the deals. So any response at all, if it's not like F off, it's okay, cool. Well, let's schedule a call. Here's what works for me. And you could even send them a Calendly link, or book them in yourself. Hey, what works for you? And then you send them the link and everything like that. Um, yeah, when you're building this out, especially, it's important to be as professional as possible from the get-go. Like, they, even if, like, the people that are watching this, some of these people are newer, you want to make sure that you are presenting yourself as the most professional company possible. So then you need things like, yeah, book a call with me. It's not, things are not sporadic. You want to make sure that things are streamlined, so that way they see you and they respect that, and they're willing to go forward with you because things are more professional. The average investor, especially, land investors, can be very sporadic. Okay, call me right now. But when you're able to systematize these things, and that's one of the biggest things we teach at LandVerse, when you're able to systematize and say, okay, here's the process of getting on a call with me from this text message, the seller sees that. The seller sees that and they respect it. So those little things make all the difference in getting a deal closed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially with land, right?
Yeah.
Because we know the process of wholesaling or flipping land, right? And we know that we're not going to be the end buyer. We're going to find the end buyer,
Right.
right? But they often don't know that, right? And so the more that they think that they're talking to the end buyer, the more that they're going to be comfortable with the number that you're giving them,
Right.
right? Because if they know that the person that they're talking to is essentially a facilitator, of course they're going to want more, right?
Right.
And so the more professionalism that you can have as you being the end of the solution, the solution that's going to get them the best number that they can, at least in the short term, without them going through a bunch of hoops to do this themselves, then that they're more likely to go that route. You know, um,
Yeah,
I think you can back me up on this, right? Like there's less emotional attachment to land than there is to homes,
for sure.
and so because
Yeah.
of that, professionalism works super super well.
Yeah. And the good thing too about most of the time, 9 times out of 10, we are the end buyers unless we're double closing on it, right? But most of the
Mhm.
time we are buying it and then we're relisting it on the market. So we do control the asset fully.
Yeah.
So they see our name or our company name on the HUD and everything like that. So it doesn't seem like, oh, they just assigned it, or, oh, they tried to find a buyer. They don't know that.
Right.
unless we're double closing. Even then, though, when we're double closing, our entity still goes on the HUD. So, it's very rare that they even know at that point. But yeah, professionalism always is gonna it's primary. The other thing too with God, I lost my train of thought, so I'll let you go. I completely lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Well, we were talking about like the theme of kind of double closing and making sure
Yeah,
that you're leaning on that professionalism. So,
yeah,
um, but what I would what I don't really have anything to add to that angle. Like I completely agree. The only thing that I will say is, and this is a common error that investors make,
hmm
is that they save all of their professionalism and all of their charm and all of their salesmanship for the discovery call. And
hmm
everything before that is just a numbers game. It's, how many mailers can I get out to equal X number of inbound responses? How many blanket, boring, non-professional, random texts can I send out to generate a certain amount of inbound responses? And they don't take that sales conversion process that you're teaching, that seller engagement process that you're teaching, and
yeah.
apply it at the first touch point. But you should, right? Because that
Me
first
too.
touch point, yeah,
Yeah,
that's your hi. That's your hello. That's your introduction to the homeowner. And they want to feel like they know you at least a little bit by the time they get onto a call with you.
right. That's what I was gonna say though. There are times where the property is more personal to the seller. And so that's a big thing that we teach also is just seller profiles and understanding who you're talking to and what their motivation is. There have been sellers that I've talked to where they camped on it all their lives and they hunted on it. So it meant a lot to them just because it had
Mhm.
a lot of family memories, but they wanted to sell. So how do you talk to that seller that has lived on it or has camped on it or has hunted on it and been there with their family? How do you talk to them as opposed to how do you talk to the seller that's never seen it before? Right? Those are two different conversations. Those are two different ways to build rapport. And so in understanding that too, that's you know, you're talking to them in different ways, just completely different ways. And so it's a big highlight, especially with land, because with houses, more often than not, you have very similar profiles. People that are in distress need to sell. But with
Mhm.
land, you have so many different profiles of people. I mean, you have the business owner, you have the person that, like I said, has lived on it and hunted on it. You have the person that's never seen it. You got a bunch more profiles of people, and so knowing how to identify that, even over a text conversation, um, to get them to book a call with you or have a call with you is extremely important. So
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the instinct that a lot of people have with launch control is, and just text engagement in general, is to take a large blanket list. Let's take 5,000 names, and we're going to reach out to these 5,000 landowners, 150 messages at a time, and generate as many conversations as we can. Right, but then you get into those conversations, and you have to start figuring out what the homeowner's motivation is. You're looking at the land profile in the app, which when we get to the end of this, we have a link and a QR code for you guys to talk to the Launch Control team, and they can run through a full demo and show you how all of this works in the app. But you'll be able to see the property profile, right? And so if you're trying to wing it from that point, it makes your job in the discovery call a lot more difficult. So what you want to do as part of a sales conversion process is really start with data segmentation, right? Because if you're able to segment that data, you brought up hunting land, right? And you're gonna send text messages to 100 people in Wisconsin who own land that fits a hunting land profile, right? And so that of those 20 inbound responses that you get from those 100 messages that you sent out, you're aiming for the discovery call that you want to have, right? So every one of those that you get onto a call, you know exactly what conversation to have. You know that it might have emotional context. You know that you can probably leverage the hunting angle a little bit or show commonality with it. Like, you have a game plan and a talk track for how to convert those leads. So you're not taking 10 calls where One is hunting land, another is landlocked, and you don't really, you want to get it for super cheap. Another one is something that has easy highway access. Another one has, slope, but it's in a good, it's in a good market. And you think you might be able to work something for it. You're having this multitude of different conversations with different motivations and different solutions. That's hard. That makes your job hard. But if you can take the data and you can focus it down to from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., I'm in hunting ground territory. From 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., I'm focusing exclusively on land that I could potentially turn over for like sublot it out and sell it to a buyer I know that's looking for larger acreage land. And you're able to then go into those messages knowing what discovery calls you're planning to have.
Right. So instead of the shotgun approach, it's just more methodical, which is always going to yield the
Absolutely.
results. Yeah. That's what we
Yeah.
want.
How do you guys work with your buyers? How do you and your students,
Yeah,
what's your buyer
we're all,
process?
all MLS. So we list on the MLS. That's where we find all the buyers. We just use
Okay.
really, really great marketing, really great descriptions, and use really great brokers in the area too. And just make sure that, I mean, depending on the area, we just want to make sure we're in local, county, and state MLS as well. Because sometimes certain brokers don't put you in all those.
Hmm.
But make sure that we use very land specific brokers, and that always yields the best results. I
And
don't
do you oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I
Do
don't
you
usually
find that
go ahead.
sorry. Sorry, sorry.
I was gonna say I don't keep inventory of people that have bought from us. It's very rare that I've had repeat buyers. So I find that like just the thing is when we're able to go on the market and see what the demand is for a property, I know exactly what it's gonna sell for because I did the research, a couple months prior and knowing that okay, this will sell for X in this amount of time, especially if I list it for 10% below what I see these comps selling for in this
Mhm.
acreage range in this specific area. Right. So I mean, I can almost pretty much predict what a property is going to sell for and how quickly it's going to sell. Like there's been times where like, yeah, this is going to sell in 30 days and it sells in less just because I do that research on the front end. We do the research on the front end. So, yeah.
Do you find that you work with certain brokers on a repeat basis, or even certain buyers on a repeat basis?
Brokers, yes. Buyers, no. That's actually something that we're working on as well as keeping like proprietary information of buyers. Because it would be nice to have buyers on a drip list too.
Yeah, because one of the things that we teach people to do with launch control possible is that there's an easy assumption that text engagement is for outbound.
Hmm.
And it's actually, if you think about it, a text message is a really great way to communicate with people, everyone in your business, right? Because it's so fast and it's so real time. So using the brokers, for example, if you can find those really great, well, let's just say you don't even know in your market who the really good land focused brokers are.
Right.
You can, and because all realtors publish their phone numbers, it's part of their business, right? So you can reach out to brokers in a market that you're trying to stand up, and establish those relationships via text, and just be straight with them. Like, I'm with LandVerse. We source, vet, and turn over probably 10, 15 lots or parcels in the counties you work in on a monthly basis. We'd love to work with you. And then, you use the text as an entryway to have a conversation with those brokers. And students working with you, they can figure out with your guidance how you vet who's a good broker and who isn't, like who really knows the land business, who doesn't. And then the secondary element of that is you can use those drip automations that I mentioned as a way to keep in consistent contact with the brokers, because it ends up being a two-way street, right? It ends up being like, just want to see, well, wanting to check how much bandwidth they have in their portfolio, what they're able to take on for the month. But they're
Hmm.
also, I'm assuming you've probably had brokers come to you with some deals that they couldn't get done, and they need more of a cash solution, right?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're opening that two-way street, but you're making it text easy, right? So it's not something you have to call them every once in a while, or like you're just automating your check-in, And for them, it just feels like a one-off text message from you. And so it sets up a feeder system, which reduces the time that you need to go out sourcing deals, right? Because the deals start coming to you.
Right.
And it also gives you the ability to, like, if you talk to, let's say you talk to two brokers that you really trust in the area, and two buyers, right, that have bought repeat properties, and you say via text, what are you guys looking to take on in the next 60 to 90 days? I'll go out and find it for you. And the two buyers said, well, look, I'm looking for some big lots. I'm looking for 15 acres plus, and I want it to be, and they give you the parameters they're looking for. You
Right.
turn back to the data, and then you start sending text messages out that fit that profile of what they're looking for, so that when you get to the point of discovery call, you've got this deal in place with the with the seller. You already know it fits exactly what your buyer or your broker was looking for, which is just going to speed up the timeline of you being able to close that deal.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's in the same line of looking at what's selling on Redfin and Zillow and everything like that. It's crazy though. The data just tells you the other thing too. So like I don't even have to. Sometimes I don't even have to ask, or I just kind of know. And then, but either way though, like being able to drip out to brokers or buyers that we've had in the past is very powerful. But also just being able to know like, okay, this is what the demand is in this area, and then kind of texting that and knowing like, okay, here's what's going to be able to happen for us in the next 30 to 60 days. So even like with the LandVerse students that I've chosen to do this text challenge with me for the next couple months, that's what we've done. We've gone in and looked at the demand of certain markets and said, okay, hey, look, our goal is this amount of profit within the next 90 days. Okay, so where are we going to find that profit? What's selling quickly at what price point? What price point do we need to be at? What offer price do we need to be at? What kind of properties do these need to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we start stacking all those on top of each other, and then you couple it with instant response marketing. I mean, the results will show themselves. So I'm really excited to do that.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I'm really excited to work with your students. It's something that is, here's the absolute equation, like the equation for success with launch control, and in many ways, I think, with a real estate investment business, whether
Mhm.
you're in land or you're in distressed properties, is really leverage good coaching and mentorship. YouTube University will only take you so far, right? Like you need someone who's been in the game, that knows what they're doing, knows what they're talking about, because there's always going to be little things that slip through the cracks if you're just trying to self-educate. I'm not saying don't self-educate, do,
Yeah.
but lean on coaching and mentorship for that final kind of trust and process factor. So if you have really good coaching and mentorship, and then the second step is, plan for this to be a, not a career, but a forever income stream for you, right? Because you might want this to just be a lifestyle business, and you don't want to put more than like 10, 15 hours a week into it, which, all respect for that for sure, but you still want to have systemization and processes. Otherwise, a 15-hour a week system can spiral into 60 hours a week because you're trying to do everything yourself, right?
Yep.
So have good coaching and mentorship, have systems, and then with your marketing, make sure that you work with the subject matter experts. So if you're gonna work with Launch Control, and I hope that you do, and we're gonna assign a customer success representative to work on your account with you. Talk to them, trust them, ask them questions, and kind of lean on their advice, because if you're taking good coaching on the front end, you're plugging Launch Control into your larger system, and you're leaning on the subject matter experts, done. You are going to do very, very, very well in this business, because you've you've covered all the bases.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. Is a lot of people look for Everything that you just mentioned is very simple, right? But a lot of people look for the super advanced things to get them to the top. But what you need is a simplicity to take you to the parabolic levels of success. That's it. You need coaching strategy. Okay, how do I get from point A to point B? How do I get to my goal? How do I get to the point where I'm doing that 250, 300 grand a year? Okay, the marketing dialed in. Okay, systems dialed in. Talking to sellers, those processes are dialed in. Finding properties, finding markets, all that dialed in, because I went through this coaching and now I'm using this marketing, and I have people dedicated to helping me. Everything you mentioned is very simple, right? But few people are actually going to take the action to do it, and that's just the reality of it. But the few that do will have the parabolic levels of success. That's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, what else did you want to? I want to see what else you wanted to touch on to make sure that
Yeah,
I
I
get
think
to. I know we wanted to talk about the messages. Is there
yeah.
anything else you want me to?
I did want to show some of those message examples you were showing me earlier.
Yeah.
I tested a few of those. We're still waiting on our DLC to be approved, but
Okay.
I did test a few of those um, last night. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
if you wanted to go over those,
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen if that's okay with you.
yeah, sure.
So for everybody watching, what we Launch Control has a network of a few thousand investors, and a good portion of those are, and a growing portion of those are involved in land. But we also have an amazing network of people like Femi. We work with some of the best coaches and partner service providers in the industry. So we're not approaching this in a bubble. We're leaning heavily on subject matter experts within the industry. So these messages are it's the approach of the messages that's more important than the messages themselves. Like, you will want to have your own variation of these approaches, but I took these approaches from some of the best land coaches and sales conversion coaches in the real estate investment industry. There's their advice to our audience, not something that we necessarily made up, right? So we're really leaning on subject matter expertise here. So a very prominent land investor gave me this advice: say I'm a local investor without saying I'm a local investor. It's the most common kind of trope in real estate investment, is to come in and say, "Hey, Femi, I'm a local investor. I'm looking for," and then insert what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
It does still work. It still gets some results, but it's not, the newness of it has worn off. The shine has worn off, right? People have seen this message before. So what it gets into is, like, when I say, or when this investor that I'm leaning on here, to say I'm a local investor without saying I'm a local investor, it's kind of like the what they say in the movie business of like, show me, don't tell me, right? And so you want to be able to drop some hint that you really do kind of understand or know the local area on a little bit more of a deep level, so you can say that you're an investor without saying it. So that first message at the top, I think you guys can see where I'm pointing out up here. It says, "Hey, Femi, I started developing land out by Hatchet Lake a couple years back. Grew up camping there. Any chance you're sitting on property out that way?" Okay, so Hatchet Lake can be a local area feature. You're throwing in grew up camping out there. I get that some people may find this as being a bit disingenuous if you're doing this remotely,
Yeah.
but it can have an impact of you can drop that grew up camping out there, right? But just dropping that local area knowledge can be something that can give you the ability to say I'm a local investor without leaning on that kind of old trope.
Okay.
Another approach that is, I'm going to kind of combine. I'm going to throw approach number one into this second approach, is to make the initial ask about the land, not the landowner, right? Because there's a tendency in text engagement to use text as confirmation rather than a conversation. Right? So it's, oh, you own parcel number blah 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 blah, correct? Right? And you're just waiting for them to go yes, right? But by saying that, by saying that you know like exactly where they own property, and you know what the parcel number is, and all you have information that is, while maybe publicly accessible, they probably don't know that, and so it feels very personal, and it
Yeah.
feels like, well, why are you approaching me as an individual, right? Whereas if you can make it about the land, then you know there's more of a chance. So this second message over here, I'm trying to get my hands on a 15 plus acre lot, preferably no more than 20 miles outside Walker Woods. Walker Woods, insert approach number one, right? Like that's just a local area feature. Pinging a few people in the area to see what's available, know of anything, right? And obviously, what you're looking for is, well, yeah, I've got a 20-acre plot about 10 miles outside of there. Oh, wow, really? Right? And then you can kind of proceed from there. But you're setting the stage of you know what you're looking for in terms of the land, rather than saying, "Hey, Femi, I want something from you," right?
Yeah.
Which can feel too personal.
A big thing too that we teach is how to disarm your seller. And so if you're
Yeah,
just asking about them, what immediately what they're gonna do is do this. They're gonna put their hands up. They're gonna be armed. If you're like, hey, because I don't know who you are, right? It could be anyone, and you're just asking me about a property that I own. So
yeah.
I like just kind of like the open loop of, hey, I'm just looking for this. Do you know anything, or do you know of anyone? It that disarms them immediately.
And a little, the same investor that gave me the first approach, the say I'm a local investor without saying I'm a local investor, also give me this advice, because a lot of land investors are investing remotely, right? So they're in California and buying land in South Carolina or whatever, and they're not from there, they don't know it necessarily. Um, Her suggestion was to lean on AI for this. And you can type in a prompt as simple as, give me 10 introductions that show that I know um, uh, Essex County really well, or that I grew up in Essex County. And you know that you can get it to mention like geographical features in the area. You can get it to mention like restaurants that everybody knows. You can get it to mention these things that are usable little tidbits that
Mhm.
might take you a bunch of time to research. And all you have to do is just type in one AI prompt, and you're like, oh, okay, there's 20 potential options. 15 of them are garbage, but those five, those are good. I can potentially
Right.
use those, right? So just a potential hack there. This one, the third one, to use an open loop opener. Now, there's the open loop in the sense of, like you just said, Femi, of like know of anything, right? Which
Right.
that's a pretty like that's a that's not gonna arise and get any ire out of people, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just an open-ended question.
Right.
Now, this one though, of like making people feel like they've been elected or chosen for something, but leaving it open ended. I know for a fact that this works very, very well for a really prominent real estate company, and they use it often. But it's going to require a little patience on your part if you try it, right? So like, hey, family, this is land grab is the terrible name for a land business, by the way. But I
Yeah.
just
Yes.
so, hey, family, this is Michael Landgrab. Your property over in Washburn County was one of 14 recommended to us in the area. Stop, right? Because what you want from text is, if you're using Launch Control and you send out 150 messages, only the people that respond, say the 20 people that respond or 25 people that respond, only those people are going to hit your inbox, and only
Mhm.
those people are eligible to receive drip automations or for you to send a series of text messages to, right? The reason this is we're not going to do too much of a deep dive on compliance, but it's to protect the recipient rights. And if they're not engaging, and they haven't essentially soft opted into that conversation, right? So we want them to soft opt into that conversation. They're not ticking a box, but they're basically showing willing participation, and it creates, even on a big algorithmic level for the carriers, it shows wanted conversations because there's a back and forth. right? So we
Right.
want that, we want to set up that back and forth. So when you ask this kind of question, or you make this kind of statement, like 1 of 14 recommended to us in the area, you're why 14 recommended for what? What do you mean? Why for what do you guys focus on? Like you're getting that text quick response where they read it and go, just basically saying what they're saying to themselves in their head, right?
What are
Why?
you talking about?
Like,
Yeah.
question mark. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But what that did is that got them into the inbox, right? And now when they're in the inbox, now again, lean on your coaching for this. Use this as situational responses and kind of trust Femi on how to respond to this. But you've now got the ability to pivot that into a larger conversation, right?
Yeah.
And you can set these up. Why? Sorry to interrupt, Femi.
No,
Let
no,
me
no,
just
no.
state this really quick. There's a feature that our team will show you when you guys come in and get a demo. Um, it's called quick replies, and quick replies are and on the easiest level, they're a way to answer just common responses. Right? Why? As a response to this message, and you've got your answer in place. So all you have to do is click one button, and that answer goes. But you can also, working with a coach, you can figure out often what maybe the 3 or 4 step process of these conversations are going to be. It's like a flow chart essentially. Is if they say this, I'm going to say this. If they say this, I'm going to say this. And you can build this flow chart of response systems out. So if you get to the point where you're running an operation of size, you can have even a VA managing these conversations for a longer period of time before you get on the call with the seller, because you've already scripted out the flow of those conversations to up to the point that it needs to pivot to discovery call. And then the last one that I'll mention is to get them to correct incorrect assumptions. This is again from a really prominent coaching or sales conversion training group. And if you say something like, again, this would be open ended, like, well, what do you need to get the deal done? Right. Well, that's something that's actually better for a phone conversation, right? Because in a phone conversation, they say, okay, well, look, I never go to this property. I haven't even been out there for 3 years. I want to be able to get this done, pretty quickly. I don't want to be super involved. What's the process? And now you can talk them through it, right? But if they have to type out that response, what is it going to take to get this done? It's a thought out long response. They're probably not going to do it, right? If you
Mhm.
say, I'm assuming you'd want this, and this might be better for a follow up, right?
Yeah.
Like they didn't answer your first message, so you try again 30 days later or whatever, right? And this is just this a secondary approach. We say, Femi, I'm assuming you'd want to get a deal in place, and this is assuming this is right now, right? Now we know they probably want to get a deal done by the first of the year, right?
Right.
That now's the time they need money, right? It's the holiday season. Everybody needs money right about now. Everybody's making big decisions going into the new year. So we set a timeline that's further out, like something that's obviously not going to be the case, right? So
Mhm.
saying, assuming you want to get a deal in place for your lot by April, May. So they replied, no, like January, February at the latest. Oh, okay. Well, we can get that done, right? So you're getting them. It's a lot easier for them to correct an incorrect assumption or get them to correct something that's incorrect than it is to get them to give you a detailed answer to an open-ended question.
Right. So instead of them being like, "Oh no, not in April. I'm gonna sell it January 1st," basically, is what you
Right.
okay.
And
Okay.
because this is, and if they want to sell it January 1st, I mean, I'm guessing your advice would be pick up the phone and
Yeah.
say, hey, I just got your message. Knowing that your timeline's a little bit quicker, here's what I'd suggest, or here's what we can do, right? And
Yeah,
go straight into solutions from there.
exactly. It would be perfect. Well, what's the time that we can get on the schedule for you? I mean,
Yeah.
and try to get that done as soon as possible. What I was gonna say earlier too is like all these things, especially the what was it? There was a specific one. The main thing is we want to get leads in. So when you were saying like getting things into the message box or into the inbox, Great. Now you have a lead. So the main point of this is to get as many leads as possible. Those are our three pillars at LandVerse: marketing, acquisitions, dispositions. So as a part of marketing is getting as many leads as you possibly can. The more leads you have, the more deals you can close. That's just the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And people coming in often, like, it's a really, it's an easy assumption to make, but data data is not leads. Data is just names, right?
Exactly.
Like, you need, until that person raises their hand and shows some willingness to engage, it's not a lead. And
Exactly.
and once it becomes a lead, and they do that, then you wanna be able to take what you've learned working with LandVerse, and you want to be able to initiate that right away, right? So it's when they hit the inbox, then it becomes real.
Yep. Exactly.
Um, I think that's the main bit that I wanted to cover. I can give everyone listening, some access to our community if they want to just kind of join up and learn a bit more about us prior to scheduling a call to get involved with launch. And then we're also, of course, going to give everybody access to book a call with our team, and talk about ways to implement what you've learned working with Femi into an active marketing campaign in this holiday season, so we can take advantage of that this period to really tee up some leads for you guys when, as we said in the opening, other marketing channels can be a tough go.
So the people watching this live right now, there is a link in YouTube to click and book a call with Launch Control to get started with them. Just a discovery call, and then I think Michael, you have a QR code, right?
Yeah. So, just real quick while I'm here, we have a community. This is open to everybody, called Investors Hub. You can find that on Facebook at Investors Hub REI. And then we've also got a podcast. If you guys want, if you're into podcasts, take a listen to that. I mean, I want to get you on that, by the way. But
Let's do it.
that one's called Deal Nation. And then, yeah, this QR code is specifically for LandVerse. It'll let us know that you were, watching this chat, or at least working with Femi, and then we can get you started with a land specific solution in place for text engagement.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll give people a second just to scan that up. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have anything, I'm good as well. Today, actually, just for the people that are watching the live stream, we're going to be starting with two LandVerse students on texting. We're getting our DLC registered and everything like that. Oh, Michael, you've got a question for you as well. Can you see it?
No, I cannot.
I'll read it for you. Maine says, "I have REI reply. Why is Launch Control better?"
Well, that's a long conversation. Um, the short answer would be, one, Launch Control was, really designed. Launch Control has features for land investors that other REI platforms don't have. They're designed to be more kind of universal, but we have the ability to switch on certain land specific merge fields and features that the other platforms don't have. Launch Control has the best deliverability and response mechanism in place in the industry, and we take very careful steps to make sure that the health of the traffic going through stays as safe as possible. And by that, I mean, you have a relationship with the carriers. It's basically a B2B relationship. And so we really work to make sure that pipeline and your ability to send messages stays at a healthy level and open, so that this can be a very foundational part of your business, consistent month in and month out. And we also take certain steps to make sure that the recipients are having a good experience, so that as a whole, the ecosystem as a whole, we don't have negative feedback from land owners. We help the app and the sellers, or excuse me, the buyers using the app, to just create a really healthy buy sell environment with people in their chosen counties.
Yeah, Launch Control is the crown head of all SMS blasting, texting. Even like, I've used it before, but getting in with these students and like setting everything up, everything is super simple. The chat support responds immediately. Like I've used a lot of different data or marketing sources like this, and the support is not that good. Even like with the mail company, the support is not that good. So you're getting instantaneous responses as well. So just like the support that you get as a customer is second to none. And that's one amongst a multitude of things that I can mention. So I've
And
never.
on no, yeah, I appreciate that, and we really take pride in knowing the industry and working hand in hand with investors to get them the results that they want, right? Like what we want, just like you know, like I'm not interested in just enabling people to send messages. I want to help them if they want to hit, $200,000 this year. I want to help them get to $200,000. If they want to hit
Right.
seven figures this year, I want to help them get to seven figures. I'm not going to be able to do everything, but if we can help them achieve a really consistent and profitable profit stream, then we want to be able to do that, right? And the other thing, like the reason I mentioned the reason we do things like this, and the reason I mentioned Investors Hub and Deal Nation, is because we really want to be thought leaders and help people succeed in their business. Not just send messages, but really come up with strategies and solutions that are outside of the box and can really help you get an advantage over the competition. So, you and I have discussed doing this as more of a series and giving people the ability to maybe deep dive a little bit more. And so if and people listening in, if you want to contact Femi and say, for instance, like I use Launch. I don't really get how to optimize the drip automations. And we want to do, shorter, maybe like a 20-minute deep dive on that. Happy to do it. And we'll give you
Yeah.
strategies, we'll give you message samples. So whatever your hurdles are with text engagement, funnel those through Femi, and we will put together very specific training to help you get over those hurdles and help the whole LandVerse community really thrive and succeed.
Love it. Yeah. Last thing before we jump off, I just want to make sure if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask the questions in the chat. I'll give like 20 or 30 seconds for people to ask questions, but if not, you can always ask questions in the Discord or, ask questions in the Discord. That's the best way. If you guys want to book a call with Launch Control directly, the QR code's right there as well. Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate the time here, Michael, and we're going to get started on our series with our students. We have Chris and EJ that we're going to be um, basically testing this out with and getting a lot of deals under contract. And sold. I'm really excited about this next couple months with them.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited too. And like I said, like whether it's live like this or in a private session, feel free to pull me in anytime. I'm always happy to help the
Definitely
community.
will. I'll definitely be sending you a bunch of emails.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Michael. We appreciate you.
I think.
All right.